In the quiet hours before dawn on April 19th, a father drove through the streets of Shreveport, Louisiana. Over the course of the morning, he walked into 3 separate homes and methodically executed 8 children. By the time the sun came up, 10 people had been shot. The 8 children who died ranged in age from just 3 to 11 years old. 7 of them were the shooter's own kids. It was the deadliest mass shooting in the United States in 2026. The man who pulled the trigger was 31-year-old Shamar Elkins. He was a lifelong resident of the city and a veteran who had spent 7 years in the Louisiana Army National Guard. A father does not suddenly wake up one morning and decide to massacre his own family. To understand the origin of that Sunday morning, you have to look at the years leading up to it, tracing a pattern of behavior that was documented long before the first shot was fired. Shreveport is a city of about 180,000 people, roughly 250 miles northwest of Baton Rouge. To understand how the violence reached its peak here, we have to look back at Elkins' history. The first major fracture appeared in 2019. After a man pulled a gun on him from a car, Elkins retaliated by firing 5 rounds at the fleeing vehicle. He did this less than 300 feet from a local high school, while students were playing outside. He later pleaded guilty to an illegal weapons charge. A year later, his military career ended. After serving as a signal support and fire support specialist, Elkins was discharged from the National Guard in 2020 as a private, having never been deployed. The final unraveling began in the spring of 2026. His wife had asked for a divorce. On Easter Sunday, just weeks before the shooting, Elkins called his parents. Through tears, with his children playing in the background, he told his stepfather he wanted to end his own life, saying he couldn't come back from his demons. On April 9th, his internal struggles spilled onto social media. He posted a public prayer, asking God to help him guard his mind. He specifically asked for the strength to reject depression, rising anger, and panic. Yet outwardly, he maintained the appearance of a devoted father. He posted photos of himself smiling with all 7 of his kids in their Easter clothes. The very night before the massacre, he took his eldest daughter out for a one-on-one date at a burger joint, posting a laughing caption about the trip. This chart shows the FBI's pathway to violence framework. It illustrates how offenders move from a perceived grievance, like a divorce, into ideation, planning, and finally execution. They fixate on perceived wrongs, build a narrative where they're the victim, and dehumanize the people around them. That pathway reached its end at 5 a.m. on April 19th. Elkins arrived at a home on Harrison Street and shot his wife. She survived the initial attack, but with critical, life-threatening injuries. Leaving her there, he got back into his car and drove a quarter-mile away to a second house on West 79th Street. The children were there. Inside the home, pure chaos erupted, as some of the kids tried to escape out the back door. A 13-year-old boy managed to flee the gunfire by scrambling out and jumping from the roof of the house, surviving the fall with several broken bones. The others were not as fortunate. Elkins moved through the home and killed 8 children, shooting them execution style. At approximately 6 a.m., patrol officers began responding to reports of a domestic disturbance. Elkins fled the scene, carjacking a man at gunpoint near the corner of the street. Local police immediately got behind the stolen vehicle, sparking a high-speed chase that crossed parish lines into neighboring Bossier City. The pursuit ended when Elkins stepped out of the vehicle with a rifle-style pistol. 3 police officers discharged their weapons, and Elkins was shot and killed on the spot. Behavioral experts note that by the time a perpetrator reaches this final stage, the victims are no longer viewed as individuals, but as extensions of a grievance. When Elkins aimed his weapon at his own descendants, he wasn't acting on a sudden impulse. He was executing a narrative he had been nurturing for months. The devastation left behind is difficult to quantify. Jayla was 3. Braylon and Shayla were 5. Kayla and Kadarian were 6. Lila was 7. Markaden was 10. And Soraya was 11. In a single horrific morning, the violence inflicted by one man effectively doubled the city's total number of homicides for the entire year. This chart visualizes a terrifying reality for the community. Over 30% of all murders in Shreveport stem directly from domestic disputes. What begins as a private conflict behind closed doors eventually becomes a catastrophic failure for the entire community when the escalation goes unchecked. Familicides almost never happen in a vacuum. The public cries for help on social media, the suicidal phone calls to family, and the documented history of firearms violence combined into a lethal, predictable sequence. Documenting this history is only one part of the equation. When a background of volatility meets the pressure of a high-stress separation, the risk moves from theoretical to immediate, requiring active intervention before the final step of the path is reached. The data suggests that these incidents are rarely random. They are the conclusion of a visible path, one that continues to repeat as long as the steps leading up to it are ignored.